Hey guys, well as you know, just recently it was Roald Dahl's 100th birthday, and I thought I would pay tribute to Mr Dahl and his work by on here listing my top 10 favourite of Roald Dahl's books. To start off with, I'd just like to say Roald Dahl was one of my favourite authors when I was a child. His children's books were just phenomenal. I loved reading them. I've read each of them 100 times because they were just such good books to read. Anyway, so here goes. Number 1. James and the Giant Peach. James Henry Trotter is a happy little boy who lives in a cosy house by the sea with his mum and dad, until one day they are eaten by a horrible giant rhinoceros, and he's sent away to live with his two wicked beastly aunts, Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker, until one day a magical old man who could be a wizard or don't know what he is, gives James a bag of little green things. He drops the bag and they spread out, and of course they cause this tiny little peach to become a giant mammoth peach. And James then, in that peach, goes on a journey with his newfound friends. The old green grasshopper, the centipede, Miss Spider, silkworm, the glowworm, the earthworm, and of course the kind old ladybird. Now, one thing I love about this story, it's not just a story about going on an adventure, it's sort of almost like a journey of self-discovery. James has, ever since his parents' death, been alone and isolated. He's been told the aunts have made him work for them and they've treated him terribly. So he's lonely. And the book really invokes that theme of friendship. So, and on the peach, on the journey, James gets on with the bugs and all, and they strike him a nice bond of friendship, and they sort of learn more about each other, and they become a family in a way. They become a close-knit little family. They become close. And that's of course is one of the main themes of a lot of Roald Dahl's books: friendship and sticking together. And that's a theme you don't see in a lot of kids' books these days. My favourite character, well, apart from James, my other favourite character in the book has to be the centipede. I swear to God, he is so funny. He is such a smart aleck. He's always poking fun at the earthworm. Oh, the poor earthworm, always saying, oh, he's a blind old bat. Like, he's just so funny. He's always singing songs and dancing. He's the smart aleck of the group, and that's why I love him. But no, this book is one of Roald Dahl's best books and one of my favourites. So if you haven't got this on your shelf, get it on it. Number 2, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Charlie Bucket is a nice little boy who lives with his mum and dad and 2 sets of grandparents, Grandpa Joe and Grandpa Josephine, Grandpa George and Grandpa Georgina, in a ramshackle little house in the bad end of town. And not far away from them is a chocolate factory, owned by the mysterious Mr. Willy Wonka, who disappeared for years and has not been seen, until one day he opens up a competition where if 5 golden tickets are found by 5 lucky people, they will get a personal tour of the factory. So as time goes on, the tickets are found by the fat and greedy Augustus Gloop, the spoilt and nasty little Veruca Salt, the gum-chewing Violet Beauregard, and the whoa, bang bang TV watching Mike TV name. And of course, as we know, Hope, Charlie of course is the last person to find a golden ticket, and he ends up going in the factory on a very magical adventure, from the delicious chocolate room to the singing and dancing Oompa Loompas, to the magical wonders of Mr. Wonka himself. What I think makes this such a good story, I think it actually teaches a lesson in a way. All the other children have flaws. Augustus is greedy, Violet is chewy, Veruca is spoiled, Mike TV just plays TV all the time, watches TV all the time. But Charlie's a good boy. He's not in it for the fame of the guy. He just wants to see the magic of it, because he always passes the factory and just wants to see inside and see all the magic and the wonder. And it's through his virtuousness and his kindness and his honesty that makes him the last child who does not give in to temptation of their flaw, who does no flaw, well, he doesn't have a flaw at all, and that enables him to win the grand prize. He ends up winning a chocolate factory because Mr. Wonka has seen this in Charlie. He's seen that he's the nice one and decides, you're the boy I want, you're good and kind and honest, and that's what I want. Another thing I loved about the book was the bond between Charlie and Grandpa Joe. I think that's just such a very warm-hearted bond. You don't see that really in books anymore, a bond between a child and a grandparent. That's a really nice, and it was really nice little relationship. And it's Grandpa Joe who goes on the tour with him, who goes on the trip with him, and they get really excited. They both have a great time in the factory. So overall, I think this is just another thing. This book, every time I read it or hear it, I want to eat chocolate. It's just it always reminds you of chocolate. Makes you just want to eat lots and lots of chocolate. Number 3, Fantastic Mr. Fox. Mr. Fox and his family live under a tree in the woods. Under a tree in the woods underground. And Mr. Fox is always out stealing chickens and goose and all from 3 wicked farmers, Bogus and Bunce and Bean, until one day they up the antics with shotguns. And it is up to Mr. Fox to find a way to feed his family and escape their clutches and save his family from them destroying them. Okay. So one thing I like about this story is Mr. Fox's craftiness and ingenuity, and it's all about, he's always in this, whatever he does for his family. He doesn't do it for himself, he does it to feed his family. That's a very good thing. Because like as I said, in Roald Dahl's books, there was always characters who were good and virtuous, as you can see there he is right there. Anything he does is to protect his family and keep them from starving. And he goes on some great adventures. And even when they're tunneled in, he never gives up. That's what makes Mr. Fox such a great character. He doesn't give up. He's not going to be outwitted by these 3 cunts. He's going to think of a way to stop them. And that's what comes into his best. And I think the best part of the book is when he, using the underground knowledge of the underground, digs underground and digs all these tunnels around into the warehouse of each person. So while all 3 farmers are waiting at the fox are waiting for him to jump out, he's dug underground to their farms and is robbing them blind. It's just fucking brilliant. So yeah, I just think that it's such a great story. And I think my favourite character is Mr. Fox without it. He's just so crafty and so clever. Just, you really get to like him, and you root for him to win. You root for him to beat them. And at the end, it's him who is the last laugh. Him when they're having the big feast. All this lovely warm feast. And the 3 farmers are up onto the ground in the pouring rain. They're like, oh, he'll come out. He will. But what they don't know is, he'll never come out. They've found a way to adjust to life underground. So he's so good and virtuousness has won, and badness has just been kicked ass. Has just been defeated. Number 4, the Twits. The Twits are 2 old people, no man, no woman, who are just absolutely horrible. And they're not called the Twits for nothing, just horrible. They're horrible to people, they're horrible to themselves, which is very funny within the book, because they're always playing tricks on each other. Mrs. Twit has a glass eye, she puts it in soup. He puts worms in she puts worms in his spaghetti. He puts a frog in her bed. They play all sorts of horrible tricks on each other. And all the while, they keep a cage full of poor monkeys locked up in their backyard to make them into a monkey service to get rich off them. And they make them stand on their head upside down for an hour and a half, a bit each day. It's just horrible until the monkeys decide enough is enough. We're not going to be treated like this anymore. And with the help of the Wally bird, hang on, I'll be right back, what do you call him? The roly-poly bird. They find a way to band together, escape to freedom, and teach the Twits a well-deserved lesson. So as I said, what I like about the book is it's a lot of funniness in it. These 2 are always just playing horrible tricks on each other. As I said, she gives him worms instead of spaghetti. He puts a frog in the bed. They just pull stunts all the time. They never quit playing each other. And as I said, the monkey family are also very enjoyable as well. I mean, they want to get away, and eventually when they find a way, the roly-poly, it's all about working together, working as a team. The roly-poly bird and them finally come up with an idea to defeat the Twits once and for all, and they decide, we'll do it. So it's very clever the way they're very clever. They put everything in the house on the scene to make everything upside down, because they decide to give the Twits their well-deserved comeuppance. So when they've put everything on the scene, they get back in their cage, and no one's none the wiser. They've outfoxed the Twits. That's one thing you gotta love at Roald Dahl, is the baddies are always outfoxed. The hero will always outfox the bad guy. You can always be assured of that. So when the Twits come back and find they stand on their heads, but they've had glue dropped on their heads, so they stick, and they shrink, and they sort of disappear or sort of die. And no one's sad. It's like, oh, the Twits are gone forever, yay! And it's good, yeah. But my favourite character in the Twits has to be, I think it has to be Mugglewump the monkey. He's just so funny and so clever, and he's just one of those typical Roald Dahl heroes who has brains and knows how to with the bad guy and will do whatever he does for his family to protect them. So he's my favourite character. Number 5, George's Marvellous Medicine. After having had enough of his grumpy old grunge of a grandma, George decides to take her normal meagre medicine and make a new medicine based on using all sorts of household items. Perfume, to makeup, to liquor, to paint, to all sorts of magical ingredients. And ends up creating a medicine in which magical, amazing things happen. Okay, What I like about the story, as I said, is the whole... This is probably, I think, one of his most inventive stories, if you ask me. Because, as I said, all sorts of magical things happen. He is able to make his grandma grow bigger when she takes the medicine. She grows huge. And, and then when they try, after the success of that, when he gives it to all the other and turns all the household animals, all the farm animals into big creatures, it's just freaking amazing. It's just so ingenuitive the way he made it. And then George's dad says, right, we've all no more medicine left, let's make some more. But they keep getting it wrong each time. They try to recreate the original formula, but they fail. Every time it's just 1 minute it makes a hen's neck grow bigger, a hen's feet grow bigger, or it may grow smaller. Of course, it's the smaller one that has to be washed, because in the very end, the grandmother takes the smaller one, the smaller medicine, and ends up shrinking away to nothing. And again, just like in the twins, everyone's like, the mean old woman's gone, yay! No. My favourite character in the book has to be George. He's just so clever. He's he's ingenuitive, he's clever, and he knows he's just fed up being pushed around by this mean old lady. I'm fed up with this, I'm not going to put up with this, I'm going to do something about it. So absolutely, this is just one of my favourite Roald Dahl stories of all time. Number 6, the BFG. Little Sophie, after witnessing the BFG, the big friendly giant, blowing dreams, is taken by the giant to the dream country, and together they get up into all sorts of magical adventures, and end up defeating the wicked giants that terrorise the land, and end up saving the world from their hungry appetite. So what I think I'd have to say, what I like about the BFG, I think is the theme of, again, it's very present with Roald Dahl's theme of friendship. Sophie is an orphan with no family, and the BFG is lonely because he's picked on by the other giants. None of them have anyone to call a friend or family. And when these two come together, they become very close. And they become almost like, in a way, good friends, father-daughters. And it's just such a lovely bond. Like, he looks after her, he protects her, and she helps him learn. Like, I mean, it's just such a lovely bond. It's just just so wonderful to watch. And Sophie as a character is a very good character to watch. She takes no nonsense. She knows we have to stop this giants from eating the children. So they band together to stop the mean giants from eating the children, and to save the world from them. Okay. I'd have to say that my favourite character in the book is the BFG. He's just so fun. He's one of Roald Dahl's funny characters. He's always getting his words. He's saying, oh, the telly bunkum box and the humple crimp and the rat. He's always taking simple words and getting them all mixed up, like flesh and bones or flesh and bones. It's just so funny. So yeah, I think this is one of Roald Dahl's best books. Number 7, The Witches. When a boy and his grandmother take a break at a seaside hotel, the boy stumbles into a secret group of a meeting of witches who plan to turn all the children of England into mice and kill them. So it's up to the boy and his grandmother to stop them. Okay. What I like about this book is Roald Dahl's creativity in it. Instead of, like, when you think of a witch, you think of maybe the witch from The Wizard of Oz, you know, typical green skin, black hat, black cloak, broomstick. But Roald Dahl changed the concept. He was very creative in this book. He said he made witches like any normal member of society. Like, you have to look out for them. Like, I mean, they're normal, but secretly these witches wear wigs, have no toes, have claws. But he makes them out to be just almost like members of society. You can't recognise them. And I think that's what's just so clever about the book. So, well, it's just so cleverly done. He's taken a normal concept and given it a fresh new breath of life. And the bond between the boy and his grandmother is just so warm and so kind and loving. And it's another touch of family themes. It's just so warm. They work together so well. Okay. My favourite character, this time I'm going to have to go and say that my favourite character is the villain, the Grand High Witch. She's just so wicked and so diabolical and devious. And when someone annoys her, she blasts them to pieces. She takes no nonsense. And the bit where she takes her face off to this ugly face with a mat is absolutely frightening. So yeah, I'd have to say it's just clever. Number 8, Matilda. Matilda is a clever little girl who enjoys to read books and learn things. Something which a lot of the people in her life, her family or her enemies, don't do. And it's through her courage and determination and discovery that she has some form of powers, is able to outwit her school's wicked headmistress, Miss Trunchbull. What I like about this book, I have to say, is Matilda herself. She's like, she loves to read books. She doesn't play computers. She loves to read. That's a quality you don't see in fictional characters nowadays who'd rather play PlayStations or use tablets. She prefers to read books. She loves reading them because they take her away from her boring, miserable life, and she's able to go into magical places in her mind. Okay. The bond she strikes up with Miss Honey is also very warm and loving to watch because, again, like in Roald Dahl, what Roald Dahl does, he takes two people who are lonely, brings them together, and they come together. They become a family. They become good friends. They become a surrogate family in a way. Like Matilda has parents, but they just don't care. They just don't care about her at all. They'd rather just watch TV and cheat people or play bingo. But Miss Honey takes an interest in her abilities, and they've just become so warm. And when Matilda going up against the Trunchbull, is just brilliant. Matilda just goes to bat. She will not, like when she puts the newt on Miss Trunchbull roars at her. She's like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do any such thing. Like Matilda knows how to play. She plays hardball really well. So I would have to say my favourite character in the book is, as I've said, Matilda, because she's just such a lovely little character. And I'd have to say the Trunchbull is also my favourite character too, in a way, because she's just so horrible. Like Roald Dahl loves to take the grown-up figures and turn them into just monsters. And so Miss Trunchbull takes no nonsense. She's just a messer. So those two are my favourite characters in the book. Number 9. Boy, Tales of Childhood. This is the first book of Roald Dahl's autobiography. And what I like about this, like normally I don't like to read authors' autobiographies because they're boring. Just, they tell you random stuff you just don't really want to know, just boring stuff. But what's good about the way Roald Dahl has written this, it's actually more like reading an actual story than an actual autobiography. Like Roald Dahl tells you everything from him growing up in England, going to English schools, playing the dead mouse trick on the little mean old lady who owns a sweet shop, going to all the different schools, the terrible car crash in which he almost had his nose cut off. Just all those fascinating... It's just, as I said, it feels more like you're reading an actual storybook rather than an actual autobiography. And that's what I think he did. He takes the concept of an autobiography and makes it feel more like it's actually a story you're reading rather than than the life of the author. And he also tells how he was able to use some of the things in his life as inspiration for his stories. Like, I mean, at one point when he's in school, I'm not sure which one it is, they would always get deliveries from the Cadbury factory. And it's through his love of chocolate that Roald Dahl was able to devise his famous iconic story, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So, yeah, it's just so cleverly written and just a tribute to Roald Dahl's. Like, it just feel like Roald Dahl definitely had a very excitable childhood. And this is back when there was no phones, no tablets, no TVs. He just had a very exciting childhood. Number 10, Going Solo. It's the second part of Roald Dahl's autobiography and details his adventures in Africa and through the Second World War. And as I said, what Roald Dahl does in his autobiography is he makes it feel more like you're reading an actual story rather than an autobiography or a life story. You're reading an actual story of event, there's just so many interesting stories in this story. Like, I mean, you've got his working in Africa, all the animals. There's actually a funny little part where a lion always comes to this Africa man's house and tries to run away with the wife thinking it's a cub, and the man refers to the lion as Simba. It's like, oh, Simba, Simba, let go of my wife. Yep. And then his journeys and trips in the Second World War. It's just so vivid and so amazing. Like, I mean, from his point of view, the Second World War being a pilot and everything. And of course, him crashing his airplane and being very nearly blinded, and his journey into regaining his sight and everything. And in between each, he writes letters to his mother. He writes and says, oh, how much I miss you, everything that's going on. And throughout the book, we're hoping he'll get back to see her again. And at the very end of the book, that happens. It's actually just like a very happy ending in a story. He gets off the bus back in England and runs straight into his mother's arms. It's just such a reunion. It's such a warm reunion, such a lovely story. So as I said, it feels more like you're reading an actual action-packed story rather than an autobiography. So yeah, it's a good book to read. Hey guys, well I hope you enjoyed that. Me picking out my favourite top 10 Roald Dahl stories. Just Roald Dahl, I think, is just such an iconic author, and today's kids needs to know his work exists. Like, get rid of all this teenage nonsense, this Game of Thrones rubbish. Just get rid of it. Another word, one of Roald Dahl's books, what I like is most of his books have been made into a movie. I mean, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory got 2. The BFG has an animated and a live action film, which came out earlier this year and was fucking amazing. I guess a story I'd love to see made into a book made into a story would be George's Marvelous Medicine. I would love to see that in a book. See that as a movie. That would just be brilliant. I just think it'd be brilliant. And another one I think that could be made into a live action movie would be like, I mean, I'd love to see Going Solo or Boy Tales of Childhood movie, because I think they'd be very interesting. But of course, when you're playing a real, who do you choose? Who would play Roald Dahl? Like, I mean, you'd need to be very good casting and very good casting. Like, I mean, like, look at some of the live action movies that are about real people today, like Stephen Jobs and Stephen Hawking. Like, they've all played the parts to perfection. So whoever was to play Roald Dahl would have to look perfect and act the part, because that's absolutely firm. So anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed that. So stay cool and keep blogging with Billy. Bye.